You're rolling and recording.
There it is. Okay.
I want to remind folks of that.
Welcome everyone to the April 6th Clackamas County Solid Waste Commission meeting. We'll start off with introductions. I can go first. Chad Euler, Clackamas County resident and commission chair. I can go down the list. I see Will next.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Will Mathias. I am the CFO for B&B Leasing in Oregon City.
Yeah, I see Carlton.
Good afternoon. I'm Carlton Palmier, and I'm the Senior District Manager for Waste Management of Oregon.
And I see Mr. Potter.
Yeah, I'm Bill Potter, Commissioner at Large for the Solid Waste Commission.
Sophie Richards.
Hi, Sophie Richards. I work for Clackamas County as multifamily recycling assistant.
Lee.
Sorry, I think I just said Julie. I'm Julie Hamilton. I work for Clackamas County and I'm the public health representative on the commission.
And then last but not least, Rick.
Rick Winterhalter, Clackamas County staff, and also Tennille.
Tennille Becerra, Philwalk, Sustainability and Solid Waste staff.
Thank you for that. My apologies. You kind of jumped around there on my screen a bit for some weird reason. Okay, next on our agenda was the meeting minutes from September. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to those minutes as sent out earlier in the week? There are no corrections or additions, so we'll consider those approved as published. Third item on the agenda, the DEQ needs assessment. Rick, do you or staff want to cue that one up?
We do, yes. Going right into it. So, yes. So, as most know, the legislation passed the Recycling Modernization Act in the 21 session and have been working, the DEQ has been working diligently on carrying out the, the rulemaking and putting advisories together to see how this thing is all going to work. Yikes. Unable to establish a secure connection to Zoom. This could be interesting.
They're still coming through loud and clear to me.
Okay, good. Well, I just, you get those notices. But anyway, so what we affectionately call the RMA, the Recycling Modernization Act, and it is essentially an EPR program or an extended producer responsibility program that intends to get the producers involved in paying for the programs that we put on the street. This is for the producer group is going to be those bringing packaging, printing, and writing paper and food service ware into the state. They will form, and they are currently, the DEQ just sent out an invitation to producers. These groups have been involved in the whole process leading up to the legislation. The DEQ did a fantastic job, in my opinion, of bringing on, public and advisory groups and really getting things out on the website and doing a pretty good job of bringing folks on. So the producers are well aware of this. They have a responsibility to form what they're going to call producer responsibility organizations. Those organizations then will be responsible for paying fees for those materials that they bring into the state, and then and also developing programs to do recycle education, to provide new, expansion of existing recycling services throughout the state, a myriad of things to improve programs. And it's important to remember that this is statewide, and it's a little xenophobic of me, but I mean, it's a little bit, trying to raise everything up to the standards that we've developed here in this region that we have for recycling. So not everybody in the state, has had that opportunity, and this will help afford that opportunity. That is the goal of the legislation, to modernize and improve what's going on. And we feel that we probably have some opportunities as well. So the plans will be the PROs. Once they're formed, they will be required to have a plan that will be approved by the DEQ, and that's for the first program plan period, which is going to be July 25 through December 27. And so the LGs, as I just mentioned, the local governments throughout the state are being asked by DEQ to complete a needs assessment for the PROs to use when creating their plans. And so that's what we have in front of you today and what we sent earlier to. So the DEQ is doing that through a survey, and that survey is going to be a web submittal. Neil graciously took that survey and created the spreadsheet that you see that we sent you. And we divided the county up into 4 sections. We will probably collapse that because we see some duplication, but for the planning, it was helpful for us to do that. We also included all of the cities and filled out their, a draft for that assessment. And we'll go into the assessment a little bit. The local governments, so we're required to submit that to the DEQ by next Friday, the 14th, right? So by next Friday, and then the DEQ will go through that. They may come back to us with some questions and that sort of thing. And then the DEQ will deliver that to the PROs July 1st. The PROs will take those needs assessments and then start developing their plans that they will bring back to the DEQ in March of next year. In that interim period, we may hear from the PROs about a little more in depth about cost and just some more, narrow some things down possibly. But we'll see how that goes. None of us, it was the first time for everybody, so none of us really know how that's going to play out. And so on this needs assessment, and the DEQ has instructed us to include all that we think that we may want in order to modernize our system, right? So we're kind of looking at that. So in one way of saying it, as they said to us, just throw everything up there that we can. And we've had conversations, as Mr. Matthias and Paul Muir know, that we've talked to them in collector meetings and kind of had them look this over as well. So I think you say we have a lot on there. But we've asked for, there's a couple new items there that we don't see all the time that, we would like to see considered. One of those is kind of creating a recycle reload facility at our transfer station to maybe help some of those rural, the rural collectors shorten their trip into town. We've thrown that up. We haven't talked specifically with each collector about that, but we wanted to put that up there, and we can work that out as we go forward. So, and we also like to kind of reestablish a depot out in the Estacada area. So we put that on there, and maybe in the Molalla area as well, to take care of some of those rural customers, and kind of a full depot, because there's the PROs are required by law, and we'll bring this up at a future meeting, but PROs are required by law to put up enhanced depots throughout counties and cities. And these are to collect some of those, items like film, clamshells, things that will be on their list, which those lists haven't been finalized yet. So we've also put on our list expanded recycling, just kind of thinking about some of those odd items. We want to talk to them about possibly expanding our Recycle Plus program that goes to all customers. Can they pay for that? Do we want to pay for that? Is that something? So anyway, so we put that on there as well. So let's see, got that. So the assessment, And we have met with each of the city. I think I mentioned that earlier, but we've met with each of the cities on, what we put down for the cities. And they, I think a couple have made some changes, but otherwise they've, accepted what we want. Some are going to submit those themselves. Some we've offered ourselves up and said, we'll do the computing. We'll do the computing. We'll split that up amongst us, but get that survey completed for the cities. So that's really kind of it in a nutshell, unless you had some questions. Tennille, anything that I missed? Well, that's shocking.
A question.
Yeah, of course.
Do we know exactly who the producers are? Is there somehow a DQ list of
We don't know yet.
just the producers?
Yeah.
Sounds kind of vague.
Yeah, sounds like a play I saw once, but yeah, no, it's not vague. I mean, if you think about it, any kind of consumer product that's packaged, any of those folks, it's Johnson and Johnson, it's Coca-Cola, it's it's everybody that's bringing consumer products in. So it's going to be a pretty big list. We don't know how they're going to, form themselves right into what the PRO, because there can be more than one PRO. I understand that there can be, I don't know if overlap's the right word, but there can be more than one PRO, and the DEQ will have to assess that. It's similar to the e-waste program. There's a
I was thinking similar to the paint care program.
Yeah, the paint care is a little more consistent because across all of the brands, they fall under the same umbrella.
It was all paint.
It's all paint, right?
Yeah.
It's all architectural paint. Doesn't matter if it's Sherwin-Williams, doesn't matter who it is. So that may be different. There may be a Sherwin-Williams Miller PRO. There may be a Benjamin Moore PRO. There could be, so that's how that could work. Similar, like I said, to the e-scrap e-waste program, because
Right.
it has a couple PROs. Thank you. Good question. Well, that's it for me. If there aren't any other questions, Mr.
Anyone
Chair.
else have any questions or discussion?
And I did think of one other thing that we did mention with the cities that you might just want on your radar. But with the depots, there are ongoing land use conversations with the DEQ, because that's one potential flag that we see that could be a hurdle that would need to be worked through.
I have a question. Is it possible that this, after the needs assessment and the PROs are formed and funding starts to flow, that this could somehow offset or negate some of the Recycling Plus program costs for the end consumer, for the customer?
That's a good question. My first response is I don't think so. The possibility would be if that were to, unless it was on some of the disposal. For example, those materials may be on the PRO list that we're collecting in some of the draft lists I've seen right thus far. And Carlton can correct me, but I think they do have clamshell, or I don't think any list has clamshells on it, but they do have film on that list and a few other things. So maybe those items get added because the disposal is free. We were looking at it as, is this a possibility to expand that program? Possibly, but it would be because of, let's say, as Tennille just suggested, land use issues are just, so onerous, they're just so expensive that they may be better off, instead of managing 25 depots, they may want to, for these special items, we may be able to present them a package that's affordable for a curbside situation where they would buy the, the tubs and pay for trucks and that sort of thing. The difficulty with the way the law is written is that they'll buy the first batch of each of those things for expanding recycling programs, but after that, it falls into the system. So that's a challenge with what's written. We're hopeful that the work on with the material recovery facilities will result in lower disposal fees overall, or processing fees, if you will, for those materials, so that then that's how we will benefit, or at least our customers will benefit. Is that, well, I see you shaking your head. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Right now, the places where we could take the material for some that can be kind of a little far off. And so I think the more facilities we have closer by will reduce those costs. So.
Okay. Any other discussion on the needs assessment? And there's no other action or decision that we need at this point on that topic, right? Okay, next item is the bulky waste collection project.
Hey guys, I'm gonna start us off on this, just kind of give you background. I know it was in your packet, but just so we're all on the same page. So in spring of last year, our program applied for a one-time, actually I should say Clackamas County, our program was a part of it, but applied for a one-time regional cleanup funds from 10 million in state funding. So it was awarded to Metro, and then Metro advised local governments that through IGAs, they distribute that a max of 300,000. So through various county departments, as well as support from our cities, Clackamas County was awarded the 300,000 for 3 cleanup projects. The first being 200,000 for abandoned RV cleanups, 90K for bulky waste pickups at multifamily affordable housing communities, and lastly 10,000 for garbage pickup at houseless communities. So other county programs and departments are in charge of the RV cleanup as well as the houseless community garbage service. But our program, Sustainability and Solid Waste, is coordinating the multifamily bulky waste portion. So we proposed this project for funding because multifamily has just been a focus regionally lately. For one, from an equity lens, multifamily residents don't always have access to the collector. So some communities have to go through the property manager, which can be an additional barrier. Whereas if you're a single family customer, you can call up your collector and ask for the service. Also, transportation limitations may also further prevent multifamily from being able to dispose properly of bulky items. And then additional financial limitations for those in affordable housing communities. So that's why we directed our attention for this project to those that are on the Oregon Affordable Housing Inventory list. Also, it's a data gathering opportunity. So this will help us inform future multifamily bulky waste services. Bulky waste collection at multifamily is one of the 4 improvements that came out of the regional multifamily residential service standard updates from a year or 2 ago. So the 4 of them, minimum service level standards at multifamily communities, regional signage throughout the Tri-County area, as well as color standards of bins at multifamily communities. So the 4th is this bulky waste standard that states that local governments must ensure provision of regularly occurring bulky waste collection service by July of 2025. And that really came out of the 2030 Regional Waste Plan Action 10.5 that says provide regularly occurring bulky waste collection service with particular emphasis on multifamily communities as well as lower income households. So all of that kind of drove our target. Additionally, Speaking of data gathering, Action 10.5 work group has been meeting regularly for the last year, maybe a little less. It's comprised of local government representatives, and we've been trying to gather data and stakeholder input, as well as plans to conduct a future pilot, basically to get all the data we need to be able to implement an effective program by the January 2025 deadline. So just a reminder of other data projects. We did do a pilot with B&B leasing in the summer of 2021 at multifamily communities. There's going to be this future pilot, hopefully starting in the fall, that's coming out of this 10.5 work group. And that one, we're really looking at all of the data we have now and what are the gaps so that we can gather that data in that pilot. And then there are also current bulky waste projects being conducted by other local governments. For example, Gresham and Washington County both got the same state cleanup funds to do bulky projects. So that's kind of a lot of detail about the background of why we're doing this. And so if you don't have any questions about that part, I'm going to have my colleague Sophie share with you really the fun stuff about the project, as she's been the one spearheading the efforts. And we will have time for questions and discussions at the end. But before we go there, does anyone have any questions about the background? Okay, then Sophie.
Thanks, Neil. I'm just going to share my screen. So give me just a sec. Oh no, sorry. Okay, is that coming through? Cool, okay. So this is our 2022-2023 bulky waste project at multifamily communities. So as Tennille just kind of summed up, Clackamas County got $30,000 from Metro's $10 million for trash and sanitation services, and we dedicated about $90,000 to collecting bulky waste at affordable multifamily housing in Clackamas County within the Metro boundary. And all of this was just kind of guided by Action 10.5 in the 2030 Regional Waste Plan and Administrative Rule 5.15 of the Regional Multifamily Residential Service Standards, both of which just kind of are getting at regularly occurring bulky waste in the next couple of years. And there's an emphasis on multifamily communities. So the scope of our work was to provide bulky waste collection at 40 communities. And this was all kind of to both provide the service and to gather data about multifamily bulky waste collection. And for the data, it's to understand needs, demands, logistics, and just to kind of guide the plan as it gets enacted in the next couple of years. And the communities that we invited to participate were all from Oregon's Affordable Housing Inventory, and the project is set to continue until our funds are exhausted. So you're going to see in a minute, but we're still in our second phase of the project. We did a term before. But just as a breakdown of kind of the details and logistics of how we use these funds and how it was decided. So we had a fixed cost per item, basically based on the average size, the average weight of each item. So we compiled a list of weights basically and categorized them in 4 different categories: small, medium, large, and XL, and found a suitable cost to compensate our collectors. And we also used a fixed rate of $45 an hour. And so these are the categories that most items fell into. Small on the left, compensated at $750 for everything under 75 pounds, metal, mattresses, small furniture, appliance, U-cycles, and then medium size, and it goes up and pretty standard. And all of these items were collected from the project, so they do represent these categories, but most of them still just fall into the small and medium sizing of things. And for the timeline of our project, we had 2 terms. It was split in 2. And so our fall term was September to the end of November, over 3 months with 40 communities, just over 2,900 units. And our spring term is happening now, started in February, and it's set to go until the end of June. And we invited 41 communities with just over 2,700 units. And we have 6 franchisees that have been on the project from the very beginning. They stayed the same. And I just want to shout out all the collectors. This project definitely wouldn't be possible without them and all their work and support. So thank you guys. So we had, of all the communities we invited to participate, we kind of analyzed their space and size and determined whether they would be better with a Dropbox or loose item pickup. And then we worked with property managers and resident service coordinators, maintenance staff to determine the demand. So that kind of informed whether they would have weekly collection or collections once a month. And then we also worked with property staff to see if they wanted to distribute flyers in person or electronically, or if that fell on us. And flyers were all shared via door to door by us, but some properties shared them through resident portals and things like that. So these are just samples of the flyers that we had. The one on the left is at the beginning of the project, and it just invites all the residences to participate in this opportunity. It kind of just lays out what the project is, that if you have bulky waste, you can set it out, we'll collect it, we'll cover the costs. It kind of just describes where and when to put items, the timeline, and what's accepted. And then the flyer on the right is for end of project or extensions, which just give them an updated timeline if that was relevant, and then just reminds them of when they can put items out, where to put them, what's accepted. And the flyer on the right also provides suggestions on how to dispose of bulky waste when this project is over and moving forward. This is pretty standard, as most communities don't provide bulky waste collection services. Okay, so I mentioned participating communities. All communities, all the 40 and 41 communities were invited to participate. Some of them either didn't get back to me, they didn't get approval from portfolio managers or property management companies, or there was a few other factors that interfered with participation, such as construction. And so that's not to say that they didn't participate. We did what we called stealth pickups, where we still had our collectors go every week and collect any bulky waste items they found on site, and we just covered the costs. Unfortunately, just residents weren't informed of the opportunity. And both of these images are from communities that weren't actively participating, and these are definitely issues that revolve around bulky waste. They fill up enclosures, they block access to recycling bins, or they take up 2/3 of the volume in a dumpster, and then no one else can dispose of their things. So here's just a pretty basic breakdown of both of the terms. So our fall term, we had half of the communities participate at 20 out of 40 and 2/3 of the total units. And then in the spring, we had 32 out of 41, so just about 75% total units and communities participating. And I'm sure you may notice some discrepancies in the numbers of total units. We just took off a community this term and added a couple more that were smaller. And then these are definitely just probably going to come across as numbers, but it's some weight, some of the weights. Expectedly, there was more tons per loose items compared to drop boxes. When you factor in the amount of communities that were in each kind of setup, it makes sense. So in the fall, let me see if I can find my number. Sorry. In the fall, I want to say we had 14 communities doing loose items and 6 communities doing drop boxes. So those numbers kind of make sense. And then totaling just under 32 tons and $10,000. And then in the spring, so far, we're only 2 months into this 5-month period, but loose items come from 27 communities, making up 14.5 tons, and drop boxes are only in 5 communities. In total, we're at 26.5 tons, just over $8,000. And it's definitely going to keep going. Hopefully spring cleaning gives us a good influx. And the weights of items that are loose items are just based on average size, so they are a little off, but estimates for sure. And this is what bulky waste looks like. If you guys aren't familiar, I am very, very close to it now. It's basically become my life. But yeah, it's everything that basically doesn't fit in a garbage can. It's defined in many different ways, but as you can see, there's a large variety of items from wood to furniture, mattresses, metal, inflatable tubes, things like that. Mostly mattresses and wood furniture. And both these images were from the same community. It's a 40-yard drop box, and they were taken probably 2 to 3 weeks apart between hauls. So it's emptied and filled up all over again. And then, all right. So I don't know, I'm sure maybe Tennille and Rick had some expectations of what we would find in our data. I didn't really know, but small items made up the majority of things collected, and that's everything under 75 pounds. So that came about 80% of items, and medium was between 75 and 150 pounds, coming in at over 15%, and large and XL items, there was maybe just a handful of those items in each term, and that was mostly like pianos or hide-a-beds, so very infrequently disposed of, but a significant nuisance for anyone trying to dispose of them. And then unsurprisingly, the amount of items collected for communities that received outreach is way higher than those that didn't receive outreach. And a lot of multifamily communities have rules that you can't dispose of bulky waste items on site. You can't leave them in the enclosure. It's up to residences to dispose of them. So I think this was pretty standard. I think this is what everyone expected. Not a lot, but still always some are multifamily. And then when you give them the opportunity, they definitely take it and run. And these are what our loose item pickups looked like. A good variety of stuff. You never really know what to expect, but most of these items still came in as a small category. Maybe a few of them are in the medium ones, but still large enough that it's hard to dispose of. You can't really put that in the back of your car and drive around and get rid of it. And these were at 2 different communities, different times. Weather always plays a factor in all of this. Oh no, I can't see. Okay, and then so I tried to kind of map out how many items are disposed of based on how many units are in a property, and kind of expected to see a linear line. The more units, the more items are disposed of, and that was unsurprising. But there was a large variety. Some properties barely took advantage of the opportunity, and some really did, with about every unit disposing 2. That was the maximum. But our median kind of fell in the same range as our average, with about 0.5 items per unit, or every 2 units disposing 1 item. And this was based just on our fall and March data, which, when you consider that the project also was in the fall, in the same communities, I'm sure like a lot of people got rid of their stuff then, so demand might be a little lower. Our numbers maybe would be lower this term, but you know, they're always surprising, and you never really know. Seasons change, and you know, like Black Friday and spring cleaning definitely have played a big game in our numbers. And oh no, sorry. And more bulky waste. This is also the same community, taken just about 2 or 3 weeks apart. And this was a 30-yard drop box, always filling up within 2 weeks. This property probably has participated the most out of any of them. And just incredible feedback from residences, from the maintenance, from staff. Everyone's loving the opportunity. It's so great to be able to dispose of stuff on site whenever you want, at no cost, with no barriers. So it's definitely a sought after service. It's really valued. It's been invaluable to work on this project and just hear such good feedback from everyone. Everyone's so excited to dispose of stuff. And there's a lot of gleaners that have really loved the project too, like other residences just going through piles and finding a new lamp or finding new couches or chairs. So it's been fun to hear all the stories from people. And I believe that is all I have. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those, or feedback or comments, critiques.
Well, I have several questions.
Sure.
Concerned of the flow of money. In the earlier part of your presentation, you had price tags on different size pieces, and what was that? Are they going to charge the people for that? And where does that money flow to? Or is that not the case?
Yeah, great question. I was not super clear.
Was I on mute?
No, you're good.
You
So
follow my question?
yeah, following. The money, okay, let me make sure I understand your question. And Rick and Tennille, definitely jump in if you guys feel like you can answer this better than me. We basically set fixed prices on things dependent on the weight, and that kind of covered the cost of disposal. And so we worked with all of the collectors. We created these tracking sheets where they would basically mark like, oh, there's one mattress, there's two medium-sized furniture things. And from there, we would generate an invoice and they would bill us. And so we covered all the costs. Everything was free to dispose of for the residences that participated, and didn't. Every community involved in the project basically didn't pay anything. We covered all the costs. And so items basically just fell into one of those categories depending on the size. If that
Okay,
answers your
so the
question.
people, the franchisees, whoever picks the materials up, now they go through it and they send you an invoice, then the county pays them. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
How are the haulers or the providers of the drop box selected? Are they people that are franchised in those particular areas, or what?
Yeah. Just whoever is servicing those communities already.
So and then the prices of the drop box are the franchise approved fees that, for instance, that we approve every year.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
true. And then in the city, for example, this is being done throughout the cities as well. And so whatever their approved rates are, that's what the grant is paying for. So, Mr. Mathias, I thought, so you might have something.
Yeah, we have one community that's hauled regularly, Kingsbury Heights, and that one is in a drop box, and it's in Oregon City, and it's at the approved rate for Oregon City.
Okay, I saw a lot of recyclable materials and the possibility of hazardous materials in there. Who's responsible for sorting that stuff out? They don't just take it to the landfill or transfer station and dump it, I assume.
That's a good question. So for some hazardous things like e-cycles, when it was a loose item, because they're loose, the collectors kind of have the ability to sort it as they're loading it. But when it came to drop boxes, we specified on all the flyers, if you have e-cycles, you have to leave it outside of the box so we can prohibit it from going into that and into the landfill. And what was the first part of your question?
Well, I mean, I was wondering who's responsible for, it's picked up by a big truck, they load this thing up on a truck and they take it somewhere. And I'm assuming they don't take it directly to the transfer station. Somebody's got to look through that stuff and see, what's in there, what's recyclable, or there was metals in there, there was other things that obviously shouldn't go directly into the landfill. Responsibility, I guess.
I can jump in. So any white goods along with the e-cycles, all that stuff is set aside. The collectors are doing it differently, just depending on how they are participating in the program. So for example, I know we have one collector that's using a rear load. There's actually a few. So they pick up what they can in the rear load and then call in and say, hey, there's extra stuff at such and such destination, and they'll send another truck by. I know another collector is collecting in a box truck, so they're able to load everything and they, they touch everything, see what they have, and they're able to dispose of it as it needs to. And we haven't heard anything on the Dropbox of, I'm assuming that things are going well with stuff being set to the side that should be. But I guess I'd let, I don't think Carlton has any Dropboxes, but I don't know if Will has any input on that, but
Yeah, I'm gonna hold off on answering that. I need to touch base with Scott.
I guess the final part of my question is, does the county have any oversight on the process from start to finish?
Yes, I mean, we've been talking to the collectors. I mean, we came with this idea and said, hey, this is what we'd like to do. And we've worked through all of that and we've been overseeing. I mean, Tennille's we're getting invoices constantly. We're getting the pictures constantly. Sophie's taking pictures as well as the collectors. So when they, for example, one of the collectors that's using a Dropbox, when they tip it on their floor, they take a picture of the box just so we get an idea of what's in it. And, for all those pictures, and maybe they had already grabbed, paint or any hazardous materials out, but I don't think we've seen a lot of hazardous materials, at least in the loose or in the Dropbox. Certainly some recyclables may wind up there, but if it's going on the floor, it depends on which facility it goes to. There might be a little light recovery out of it, but especially the metal. But otherwise, most of it's just getting tipped. But yeah, we have oversight. We keep revisiting. We've been doing these short durations, and because we don't want to run out of money, and so we've been doing these short kind of stints and kind of monitoring how the money's going. And so so we do have pretty solid oversight on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or discussion? I'll just say to Neil and Sophie, thank you for helping support this and for your work on it. This is really valuable to a lot of people. So I think I fully agree that you guys picked a good project, and I think it means a lot to residents. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next item was inclement weather. Rick, do you want to just start off by kind of giving a brief summary of what the regulation says around safety and billing?
Sure. This was, I think, Chair Euler and Commissioner Potter raised this issue about inclement weather, and we haven't had any complete discussion about it. But if folks, just to say how we handle inclement weather when it's snow time or, ice storms or, whatever it is, if there's a delay in service because of that, when it's going to get cold and there are also the too hot days, the heat is going to start being something as well. But typically it's been snow and ice days. And when those are coming and we're aware, the collectors are usually checking in with me the night before, say, hey, or, we all kind of rally around and say, it looks like we're going to get some weather. The county puts a blast up on our website. Many of the collectors have the ability to reach out to their customers via RoboBlast, and so they can notify customers that way, as well as having a blast on their website. Our policy states that there are no credits for delayed service, because in the making of that policy, the presumption is that all of the service that you are allowed will be delivered, because we allow, if you missed 1 week, the next week you're allowed to double that service, and nobody balks about it, and we very rarely hear anything negative about that. And so that has been the typical way that things have gone, and we have supported that, that policy. There are occasions where there may be pockets that aren't served for a length of time. And in some of those cases, the collectors may provide a credit or do something else to help that customer, because it's usually just a few isolated areas where that happens, but it does happen. And so I think that may be why the issue was raised. But anyway, our policy is, the service will be rendered in due time.
Sounds like that's kind of a loose policy to generally say it like that. When I brought it up because I'm on Nextdoor, I'm familiar with that. There was a lot of chatter from people just to one another, says, aren't we going to get notified? Why didn't they pick up? It just seems like there's sort of a gap from one provider to another. I'm not sure. Personally, there was a day, my pickup day is on Thursday, and I got a email from Waste Management said there may be a disruption in service, that the schedule will change. That was on Wednesday. Thursday they didn't pick up, even though the roads were clear. And I thought, well, maybe they'll pick up on Friday. They didn't pick up Friday, and I didn't hear anything. And Saturday they didn't pick up, so I finally took my barrels back inside. It just seems like there ought to be a better way. Do you decide by a general, overall for the region, or is it decided by the individual route? Or isn't there just a better way to let people know? I don't know. There was some dissatisfaction. I would not have said anything myself if I hadn't seen the other chatter on Nextdoor.
No, I think that's important. And anytime that comes along, if you can share that with us, I mean, anybody, that kind of thing is very helpful. So
I don't know if anybody else had an occasion to have a comment on service or not, but that's just mine.
Yeah, I'm processing what Rick shared. Like I can tell you, I have had similar experiences where I've been missed for several weeks. Because of wild animals, I wasn't able to get all of my waste out the following week when service restored. And then I was stuck paying service overage fees for the next 2 weeks. I think that was like a 3 or 4 week run where I was missed. I fully value the safety. I would never want a hauler out in the in the snow when it's not safe. But the lit up fee was really quick to come in after being missed for like a month. So I definitely can share that I've been on the frustrating end of that situation.
And that's an occasion too, where I think, we should be notified by that. And obviously just call the customer or call the company first, because it's probably an oversight. Because they would recognize it. Oh, you haven't been collected. You were one of those. And drivers should know that as well, but not always. Drivers switch routes and that sort of things.
I wonder if there's a cost savings to the franchisees if they don't collect on any given day. I don't know, they're people paid by the hour. Do they not come in? Their trucks are sitting there, they're not moving. I think, after a period of time, maybe a day or so, no, but if it goes longer than that, maybe that's a consideration we should look into, as an organization that looks after the ratepayers.
I'll let the experts respond to that. The
Who are
commission.
they?
I mean,
It just seems something we might want to look into. I mean, do the ratepayers deserve to have that savings, or do the savings go to the haulers?
Hmm.
Do you want to reflect in on this, Carlton?
Well, I would say in general, to kind of rewind a little bit, at times, with like say WM in our location, being by the airport and the river, at times when you do see generally milder weather in your area, it may be that the highways or the roads in this area we're not able to get out of. So that's something we've experienced with the weather changes we've seen the last few years. So I know that can be a challenge. We have experience with some more, I guess, ice and freezing type weather in this area versus a little bit more south. So it proves to be a big challenge. We you know, the haulers do want to go out and service. There's nothing more we'd rather do. Worst case, you know, the drivers go out and they end up picking up double the next week, which increases their disposal loads. And they typically all work about 13 to 14 hours a day for DOT standard. And I can tell you for sure they don't want to be out there that long. So there's really per se not a cost savings for us, because at the end of the day, we end up paying the overtime to collect that extra volume the prior week when it could have been done at regular time. And our trucks are out there working longer and unfortunately experience more vehicle accidents and insurance claims as a result to the inclement weather. So it can be a little bit of a challenge, but I don't see a huge per se cost saving initiative by just not running, because there are added labor expenses with overtime associated with that in most cases.
Oh, good conversation. Welcome, Cheryl.
Hi,
Yeah.
everybody. I apologize for being late. I had another meeting that ran long. It's nice to be here with all of you.
Thanks for joining. Does anyone else have any comments around inclement weather, suggestions, motions?
I had one, maybe, I don't know, Rick, if it's really up for a topic of discussion. You know, does the inclement weather policy, it is very vague, as Mr. Potter mentioned, but does that also, just for my own edification, include heat index, heat waves, and forest fires, some of the new OSHA regulations that came out last year?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to, you know, put those in there. We just say inclement weather, so does that mean heat? We think yes, it does. So I mean, and is that fire? We may need to define that a little bit better. So we'll definitely look at that and maybe bring you some options and see if that provides the clarity that's necessary. I mean, I think, you know, it's the specificity is tough, and we tried that in earlier years, and this policy is fairly consistent region wide, and especially in the case of, you know, we try to get and we lay that out there so that the customer can see it, that, you know, they're, you know, we're going to get garbage first, so hold on to your, you know, your recycling and your yard debris until that's done, because then that way, by doing that, then, you know, the drivers, you know, the companies can put all of their resources towards getting the garbage, which is the most important thing, is to get those petressables out of there. Now, it's also the case that in some cities that are collecting, you know, food and your yard debris, you may need to pick, that might need to be the second item that's received. So we try to put that into the policy, but collectors may be able to get all of it. Everybody can be a little different in how the inclement weather is. So that's the hard, I think that's the hardest part about this, is to have a policy that, you know, fits the region, that's somewhat consistent, and that fits our county and fits the cities. And so this is where we've come, but we can keep looking at that and look at those resilience issues. You know, are there some things that we can do to, you know, make sure things don't go for 4 weeks? Because like Mr. Palmier said, nobody wants to go 4 weeks. Nobody wants to do that. So hopefully we'll continue working on it.
And I appreciate the comments, Rick, because, you know, as a hauler, we have experienced, you know, some interesting situations with Metro shutting down and stuff that impact our ability to operate as well. So it's something new out there. It's just something to bring up because it's a year old almost, and with the way our weather goes, it might be a possibility.
Yeah, I think it's a big clarity to have. It's really,
Would a motion be in order?
but
Ask staff to look into and review that portion of the policy, or can you just do it?
yeah, I don't think we need a motion and a vote, or if you're asking staff to look into that, and, you know, what specific issues, if you're looking at notification, those types of things, we can certainly look into that. And bring you
I think
something.
something that
Rules.
all the stakeholders need to have a shot at, take a look at it.
Oh,
If I'm thinking it might be a situation or not necessarily a problem, but there's probably dozens of people out there that are thinking it. And, you know, I'm on the commission, so bring it up, right? Fair enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely, Carlton, you mentioned wildfire smoke. I mean, that, this is every other year or so, will be certain areas in the county get hit with snow annually, obviously, but we get some pretty rough years, and now we could probably expect consistent, pretty rough summers. So it might be worth looking at options of clarifying, or, you know, maybe even it's just a communication campaign to help people understand. I mean, the website does a good job, but maybe there's another way of like putting it out there of having awareness of when they can expect waste pickups, or maybe guidance on billing, or whatever might help address some of that next door chatter. Carlton, I had another question. You'd mentioned the OSHA reg. Does, for example, your company have a standard on when you guys halt operations for air quality?
Yeah, we've never ran across that yet, but I believe, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, the OSHA air quality rule in July or June of last year basically states that you're pretty much not allowed to operate if the AQI, or the air quality index, exceeds, like, I think it's 500, which is really high. So we have a lot of training we do. We have storage rooms full of masks, everything we're required to provide to employees, especially in the heat, minimum quantities of water that we're supposed to apply as an employer to all employees. And so we really prepare ourselves, but ultimately at some point, I'm sure that the heat or the air quality will exceed a threshold that will limit the haulers to our ability to go out and actually service, not of our own undoing, but maybe more from a state regulation standpoint.
Good to have on the radar.
Yeah, and I think, you know, talking about communications as well, and that's something we work on, and we try to zero in on the next door, especially for extended time, because that can get to certain pockets of individuals, and but still there's overlap, and you know, there are just the challenges with it, but we continue to try to improve on that. And certainly with those collectors who have the robocalls and can reach out directly to their customers is super helpful. Having people sign up for the Recollect program that we have, we could do even a better job. We had to zero that in. There's challenges there as well. So yeah, we could continue to look at that communication.
Does anyone else have any inclement weather related discussion? Okay.
So,
All right. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, we do have some folks in attendance. And so there may be somebody that wanted to make a public comment. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I see that now. Do we have anyone from the public attendance that wants to comment on any of the discussion?
You can.
I've been watching the QA. Does everyone have the ability to, are mics active? Or is it written only?
Just a written one.
Okay. So if anyone has any comments, we'll hold for a minute while you can.
And you can raise your hand. And I can. So we'll just. I don't see any hands raised yet. So. I think we're okay.
I do see a hand for Josh Brown.
Oh, I just did. Well, I might have seen that. So
Excuse me. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just joined on. I was just able to get on. So only comment would be, Rick, can we maybe figure out that Zoom link for the next meeting so that we can be able to get on and view the call?
was there a problem with that?
Yeah,
The one that was on,
on the webpage link. So yeah, there's an issue with the website. So I think there were several others. There were some emails flying earlier from city members that weren't able to get on as well. So
some of our staff mentioned something and we had, okay, well, that's good. I'm so sorry about that. We will definitely look into that.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Thank you, Josh. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, I think that takes us to the last item, which are updates to the Recycling Plus program.
Yeah, commissioners, just want to make you aware that the Recycle Plus program, the collectors are ready to go and are making all the preparations. And if somebody calls them and if they seem to have things set up on their websites, and if folks call, they should be able to get that service, the Recycle Plus service. And so we will continue to work on communicating that out to folks, but it's a little difficult. It is an optional program, and so doing a broad-based outreach is a little tough. So it's going to have to be the collectors are going to be responsible for most of that outreach. We're going to be helping them, providing materials for them to use, and we're talking about possibly doing a bill insert here in a month or so to try to get things going. So that's where we are on that. And Mr. Palmier and Matthias, if you had anything to add to that, certainly could.
Nothing really. We started in Oregon City this month and have had a lot of interest. So program's going well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
A handful of deliveries for us as well. Things seem to be pretty quiet on that forefront.
Okay, good. And then the next thing is batteries. As you know, you approved and recommended the commission to put batteries on the curb as a regular weekly service. And we've been working hard with our PGA folks, and Tennille has been working real hard with them and coming up with new recycle guides that include the batteries. And a shout out to Lori at PGA. She's been really super helpful. And so taking pictures of her own batteries and including those. And so it's been a iterative process for sure. But so the batteries and the collectors have already been picking those up. We've had communications with all of the cities because we made a little bit of an announcement, and after the board had the approval, and then folks, of course, that picked up on that started putting things out. Didn't matter where they live, and fortunately the collectors were prepared to do it, and because of the safety concerns and that sort of thing, so they began picking those up. We've talked to all the cities, and they're well aware that we are going to be making a pretty big announcement. Tennille, I'll let you give the details on that.
Yeah, so to Rick's point, we've kind of been just focusing on our promotion saying in unincorporated areas. But on May 26th, our county-wide publication will hit all residential and commercial doorsteps, My Clatco magazine. In that edition, there will be an article about batteries and how to properly participate in the curbside program. And in that, we will say this is county-wide, regardless of city or unincorporated. While the collectors are already picking up We just haven't done that promotional piece to give our city partners a chance to have their own internal conversations, run it by their councils if they want. But basically, as I've joked with the cities, back in Rick's day, when new materials were added to the list, the cities just kind of came on board. So it was a countywide program or regional. And so the batteries is just going to be countywide, and it'll just be a part of curbside service. So
Yeah,
May 26th.
I'm sitting right here, you know.
You can take it. You've got broad shoulders.
Thank you, Tennille. And then the only other update that I have that isn't on there is, you know.
Wait,
the-
Rick, before you move
Go
on,
ahead.
there's one other piece I wanted to mention. That article will also state that it's for basically single family residential customers that have their own glass tote. And it will say that we are continuing to work with the collectors, the franchisees, to identify ways that we could safely provide this same collection service to multifamily communities. So apartment and condo communities where they have shared service, typically their glass bin is a roll cart. And so putting a bag of batteries in there would just be lost and doesn't work the same way that the single family does. So that's an ongoing thing that we're working on and trying to find a way to offer that service to them as well. So now I'm done.
Just quickly, you know, the annual review, the financial review is underway, and collectors submitted everything on time on March 15th. And Chris Bell of Bell and Associates is working away and currently sending questions out to collectors, what's on the reports, and we will be coming to you in about a couple days over a month from now to discuss that review and what the composite looks like, and if there's a need for an increase. We do know that obviously everybody's aware costs are rising, some more than others. We do know that disposal will be increasing somewhere around 7.5%. That's collectors are all price takers on that. So we will see what the analysis looks like and bring that to you at our next meeting. Right. It for me.
I have a quick question back on the batteries and Recycling Plus. Is there any data being collected on how much battery mass is being collected? I'm not suggesting there would be, but is that something anyone's tracking? Just to get an idea for utilization.
Question?
If that doesn't help.
I mean, we as a hauler, I can just say that when we collect those batteries and then send them off to Universal Recycle Technologies where we're taking them, we do have, the weight ticket on that. We do collect and track that information.
And the same for Recycling Plus. You guys obviously have to have customer accounts for who's using that. Is that data that would be easy to produce, like say at the end of the year at a later meeting, just to kind of help us see, how much that's actually being taken advantage of?
So we'll be taking all those materials to Far West Fibers, and of course we expect to get, weight tickets on those as well, and have that information. So we expect to be able to track it.
Okay. Would it be possible at a later meeting to get an idea of how many customers you guys have that are exercising that portion of the
Sure.
extended recycling program?
I could certainly provide that for our company.
Same here.
Okay, that would be really great to just get an idea of, is it, 0.1% of the county population or 10 or whatever that looks like.
We're all kind of interested in that, Mr. Chair, so we would definitely be.
Okay,
be doing it. And then we, knowing that they will be tracking that, we have a monthly recycle report as well, and we need to kind of make sure that we have those materials on that report so that they can, work on that. So that's what we're working with the region, there's a regional group that's working on that database because collectors throughout the region use that. And so we want to make sure that that's standard and, make sure we understand how it's being collected and, or how it's being transferred or disposed.
And then I had one other item I wanted to address. So Rick, as you mentioned, in about a month, we have our annual report. We've talked about meeting format in the past, live versus Teams. I'd be interested in if anyone has any opinion about it. My sense is a hybrid meeting doesn't tend to work very well because the handshake between the room and the call just is never really all that great. So I'll say it like this. I'll make a motion that we make the annual review starting May a live in attendance meeting.
I would second that. I
Okay,
would second it.
okay. All in favor of a live meeting for our May and every annual report review after, say aye.
Aye.
You might need to keep hands up. I don't know, Rick, I don't know if you're helping. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5, 6. I see 6. So, okay. So I think that's majority. So we'll plan to have you guys host us at the county building in a month. And very exciting to see everyone in person. That'll be great.
That'll be great. We may
Is
even have snacks.
I'm sorry, did you say snacks?
I did say snacks.
Beverages would be
Now I'm
nice.
committed.
Chair, I do see a hand raised in the audience if that's still allowed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be great. Mr. Posadas?
Yep. I think I have. Yeah, you should be able to unmute, Dante.
I didn't actually mean to raise my hand, Rick, but I do have a question about Recycle Plus. So in Oregon City, we've passed Recycle Plus, but we have had some multifamilies ask about how that would work. Are there any other haulers or anybody in the county, the whole county, I guess, that is already, I guess, picking up multifamily Recycle Plus stuff, or is that not available yet? I guess Neil, you would probably know best.
Yeah, I believe what was actually passed, and Rick, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was just specific for single family, and I think there's a line that says we'll work on multifamily in the future. That being said, Washington County is about to launch their multifamily program this summer, so we're hoping to learn from them. Let them go first and see what they can teach us.
So what was written for Oregon City was residential customers. And we didn't necessarily draw any line between multifamily and single family homes. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's any, you're saying Washington County has examples?
They're working on it now. Their pilot goes live this summer. I don't know if they have a specific date set, but it does say summer of 23 for a multifamily. I know they're working on it.
Did you have the pilot program from them, or is there like an outline, or no?
I
Nothing?
have nothing from them yet. I just know that they're working on it.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll fall in line with them and just make sure that we're upfront with our customers. Thanks.
And I know for us, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but residential has been used as a customer type, which is just single family, and multifamily. While residents live there, it's a commercial account.
Okay.
So that might be
Okay,
wordplay for you.
okay, understood.
Yeah. And different collectors may, have things worked out to put those, put customers on. So yeah. You
Okay.
can-
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
you. Okay, does anyone else have any other items to discuss? Okay. I don't see anyone raising their hand or having anything to say. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn. Did you get that?
I got it. A motion to adjourn the meeting. We have a second.
They want
I'll
to stay.
second.
That was a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you,
Take care.
Chad.
Thank you.